There are moments in life when pain leaves more than just memories. It leaves marks, scars that whisper the stories of survival. Some try to hide them, some try to forget them. But there are rare souls who turn those scars into symbols of strength, beauty, and transformation. This is the story of such a woman, not just one woman, but every woman who refused to be defined by her wounds. Life tested her in silence. There were days when her tears became her prayers, nights when her heart broke quietly under the weight of her own expectations. But instead of letting her suffering define her, she let it refine her. Every scar became a lesson, every pain a teacher, and every fall a deeper understanding of who she truly was. The strength she found didn't come from winning every battle. It came from showing up again, even after losing. Her courage wasn't loud or dramatic. It was the quiet decision to rise again, to smile again, to trust again. Because she knew one truth: pain is temporary, but purpose is eternal. So when you look at her now, you don't see the bruises of yesterday. You see the wisdom of someone who learned how to turn pain into power. You see someone who didn't just survive her storms, but learned to dance in the rain. Her scars don't embarrass her anymore. They empower her. They tell the world that she's been broken, but never defeated. The story of her becoming isn't about perfection, it's about perseverance. She didn't escape pain. She embraced it, understood it, and transformed it. Her scars became her symbols of victory, because true beauty isn't in the flawless. It's in the fearless. And that's exactly what she became. Pain is not our enemy. It is our greatest teacher, though it never comes dressed as one. It doesn't arrive with a smile. It arrives with a storm, tearing through the calm of our days and shaking the ground beneath our feet. If for her, pain came uninvited, unexpected, and unrelenting. But with time, she realized that every ache was carving something deeper within her, something far more powerful than she ever imagined. Pain wasn't punishing her, it was preparing her. There was a time when she would ask, "Why me?" Whenever life hurt, she believed that pain meant punishment. That struggle meant she was somehow not enough. But as the years unfolded, she began to see differently. The moments that broke her were also the moments that built her. The disappointments that made her cry were the same ones that taught her patience, and the losses that left her empty were quietly filling her with wisdom. Every time pain knocked her down, it handed her a lesson, not in comfort, but in courage. She started to observe that pain doesn't just visit to destroy, it visits to awaken. When life is easy, we don't grow much. We settle, we drift, we become comfortable. But when life hurts, it demands our attention. It forces us to look within, to ask questions we never dared to ask, to find strength we never thought we had. Pain becomes the mirror through which we see our truest selves, raw, vulnerable, and real. It strips away the masks, the pride, and the illusions, leaving only the core of who we are. She realized that every painful moment carried a hidden message. When she faced betrayal, she learned the depth of her loyalty. When she experienced loss, she discovered the power of letting go. When she was misunderstood, she found the strength to stand in her truth even when others couldn't see it. Pain was shaping her into a woman who no longer ran from her emotions but walked with them. It was teaching her empathy, the kind that can only come from having lived through the fire and still choosing to love. Over time, she stopped resisting her pain. She started to sit with it, breathe through it, and listen to what was trying to tell her. And the more she listened, the more she grew. Pain taught her boundaries, how to say no when she had always said yes. It taught her value, how to stop giving her energy to people who only took. It taught her gratitude, how to find beauty even in brokenness. The woman she became didn't emerge from moments of comfort, but from seasons of struggle. Pain became her silent mentor, teaching her lessons no book ever could. It taught her that sometimes the universe breaks you down so you can rebuild stronger. It showed her that the deepest wounds often create the most compassionate hearts. And it whispered one timeless truth, that growth and pain are two sides of the same coin. You cannot have one without the other. So she no longer feared pain. She respected it. She learned to thank it even when it hurt. Because she knew now that pain was not there to stay. It was there to shape. It was not there to crush. It was there to carve character, clarity, and courage into her soul. And through that understanding, she turned every ache into awareness, every scar into strength, and every fall into a rise that touched the sky. There was a time when she looked at her reflection and saw only what was broken. Every scar, every flaw, every line felt like a reminder of what went wrong. She would trace them with her fingers and feel the ache of old memories, of moments when life was harsh, when love left too soon, when dreams shattered before they could bloom. She used to hide those scars behind layers of silence, makeup, and forced smiles, thinking that perfection was the only form of beauty the world would accept. But one day, she realized something that changed everything. Perfection isn't beautiful, authenticity is. She began to understand that her scars were not signs of weakness, but of survival. They were the proof that she had endured, that she had faced life in all its rawness and still chosen to move forward. Her scars were not ugly, they were powerful. They were chapters of her story written in her skin, evidence of every battle she had fought and every victory she had quietly claimed. When she looked at them with new eyes, she no longer saw shame, she saw strength. In a world obsessed with filters and facades, she decided to be real. She embraced her imperfections with grace and honesty. She stopped apologizing for her past and started honoring it. Each flaw became a fingerprint of her journey, unique, irreplaceable, and deeply human. She understood that true beauty was never about flawless skin or unbroken stories. It was about the courage to wear your truth with pride. And when she did, She felt a freedom she had never known before, the freedom of self-acceptance. Embracing her imperfections taught her compassion. She learned not to judge others by their masks because she knew what it felt like to hide. She realized that everyone is carrying their own scars, some visible, some invisible. When she saw pain in others, she recognized it because she had lived it. That recognition became connection, and connection became healing. She stopped pretending to be perfect and started being real. And that realness became her greatest source of power. Slowly, the same scars that once made her feel small began to make her feel unstoppable. They reminded her of every time she fell but got back up. They reminded her of nights when she cried herself to sleep but woke up determined to try again. They reminded her that nothing, not heartbreak, not loss, not failure, could take away her spirit. And so, she wore them not as wounds but as wings. When she stood in front of the mirror now, she didn't see brokenness. She saw a mosaic, every piece, every scar, every crack coming together to form something whole, something radiant. Her beauty wasn't fragile anymore, it was fierce. It came from knowing she had survived what was meant to destroy her and turned it into art. Her scars became her language, a silent, sacred one that spoke of resilience, courage, and rebirth. They told the world, yes, I've been hurt, but I've healed. I've been broken, but I've rebuilt. I've been lost, but I found myself again. And in embracing her imperfections, she didn't just accept herself, she inspired others to do the same. She became living proof that the most beautiful things in life are not perfect. They are real. She became a reminder that sometimes what makes you different, what makes you scarred, is exactly what makes you extraordinary. Strength doesn't always arrive with noise or glory. It doesn't always shout from the rooftops or make grand gestures. Sometimes it whispers softly in the quiet corners of our lives when no one is watching, when no one is cheering, and when no one even knows what battles we are fighting. That is where her strength was born, in silence. It didn't come from applause. It came from endurance. It didn't grow in comfort. It grew in chaos. It was the quiet resilience that carried her through moments she never thought she'd survive. There were mornings when getting out of bed felt like climbing a mountain, yet she did it anyway. There were nights when her heart felt too heavy to carry, yet she kept breathing, kept hoping, kept moving forward. No one saw those moments. No one saw the tears she wiped away before stepping out into the world with a smile. But that's where her strength lived, in those invisible victories, in the small, silent acts of courage that no one applauded. She learned that strength isn't always about fighting back. Sometimes it's about holding on. It's about keeping your heart soft in a world that tries to harden it. It's about choosing kindness when anger feels easier, about forgiving when resentment seems justified, about trying again after failure whispers that it's over. Real strength isn't loud, it's consistent. It shows up even when life feels unbearable. It doesn't demand recognition, it simply perseveres. People often mistook her calm for weakness. They didn't see that it took more courage to stay composed than it did to react. They didn't understand that silence can be louder than shouting, that peace can be more powerful than revenge. Her resilience was quiet but unbreakable, a strength rooted not in pride, but in patience. When storms raged around her, she didn't fight the wind, she learned to bend with it. She trusted that she would rise again when the storm passed. Every challenge she faced refined her character. Every heartbreak deepened her understanding. Every disappointment strengthened her resolve. She learned that resilience wasn't about never falling. It was about never staying down. Each time she was knocked down by life, she rose again, maybe slower, maybe shakier, but stronger and wiser every time. And with every rise, she became more grounded, more centered, more at peace with who she was becoming. Her quiet strength didn't need validation. It didn't need to be noticed to be real. It was built in private, in long nights of reflection, in silent prayers, in moments of surrender. She discovered that the most powerful battles are not fought on stages or in crowds, but within, between despair and determination, between fear and faith. And every time she chose to rise, every time she chose hope over helplessness, she strengthened that muscle of resilience within her soul. What made her truly powerful was not that she never broke. It was that she learned how to rebuild. Each crack in her spirit became a window for light to enter. Each scar became proof that she could endure, adapt, and begin again. She stopped seeing herself as a victim of her circumstances and started seeing herself as the author of her comeback story. Her quiet strength became her identity, not the loud, aggressive kind, but the kind that moves with grace, that loves despite pain, that hopes despite loss. She didn't need to shout her resilience, she lived it. And in that silence, she became unstoppable, not because the world believed in her, but because she finally believed in herself. Growth never happens in comfort. It happens in the fire, in the storm, in the breaking. For her, life's most defining moments came not when things were easy, but when everything seemed to fall apart. The woman she became was shaped not by her victories, but by her struggles. It was through adversity that she found her true strength, a strength that was not taught by ease, but born out of endurance. Every time life tested her, it wasn't trying to destroy her, it was trying to develop her. She had days when her dreams felt too distant, when the road ahead was covered in fog, and when the people she trusted turned away. There were moments when she wondered if the pain would ever end. But in those very moments, something powerful was taking place inside her. She was transforming. Pain was burning away her illusions. Failure was stripping off her fears. Disappointment was redirecting her towards something greater. The same hardships that once made her cry became the foundation of her wisdom. At first, she resisted change, She wanted life to be simple, predictable, kind. But life had other plans. Plans to make her stronger, not softer. And when she stopped asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and started asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" her entire perspective shifted. She began to see adversity not as an obstacle, but as an opportunity. Every challenge was a lesson in disguise, a lesson in patience, in courage, in faith. When she lost, she learned humility. When she was rejected, she learned resilience. When she was misunderstood, she learned self-trust. Every difficult experience shaped her like waves shaping the shore. Slowly, persistently, beautifully. Each struggle refined her edges and polished her spirit until she became someone who no longer broke easily. Her pain became her power because she allowed it to transform her instead of define her. She learned that transformation is never gentle. It demands surrender. It demands discomfort. It demands that we let go of what we were so that we can step into what we are meant to become. And that's exactly what she did. She stopped fighting her storms and started learning from them. She realized that every breakdown was a breakthrough in disguise, a chance to rebuild her life with more clarity, depth, and purpose. With time, she discovered that adversity has a strange way of revealing our truth. It strips away all that is false, all that is temporary, and leaves behind only what is real. Through her struggles, she found her values, her faith, and her voice. The woman who once questioned her worth began to stand taller, speak clearer, and walk with a quiet confidence that came from having survived what was meant to destroy her. Transformation through adversity taught her that growth is not about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you otherwise. Every challenge she faced helped her return to her authentic self, the one who was strong, compassionate, and fearless long before life tried to convince her otherwise. So when she looked back, she no longer resented her struggles. She honored them. Because it was in her hardest moments that she discovered her truest strength. The storms didn't break her. They built her. They turned her wounds into wisdom, her pain into purpose, and her suffering into strength. She walked through adversity and came out not bitter, but better. And that transformation became her greatest triumph. Faith doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's the quiet whisper that says, "Keep going, even when everything around you is falling apart." For her, in thee, faith wasn't something she was born with. It was something life carved into her through countless trials. It began as a faint hope, fragile and uncertain, but over time, it became her anchor. In moments when fear screamed louder than reason, faith became her stillness. When the world turned cold, faith became her warmth. When she couldn't see the next step, faith became her light. There were days when she stood in the middle of chaos with no answers and no guarantees. Life had stripped her of certainty. People she trusted left, plans she built collapsed, and dreams she thought were hers disappeared overnight. Yet deep inside, There was a voice that whispered, "This is not the end." She didn't know how she would rise again, but something within her refused to let her give up. That something was faith, quiet, invisible, but unwavering. Faith taught her that sometimes you don't need to see the whole path to take the first step. Sometimes you just need to trust that every step forward, no matter how small, is taking you somewhere meaningful. Even when her heart was heavy, she learned to walk by trust, not by sight. She realized that faith isn't about having no fear. It's about moving forward despite it. It's about believing that every delay has a purpose, every heartbreak has a lesson, and every closed door is protecting you from something not meant for you. There were nights when she sat in silence, tears running down her face, asking the heavens why her journey had to be so hard, and though no voice answered back, life itself began to show her. Every loss that once broke her later guided her towards something better. Every no that once hurt led her to a greater yes. Faith was not removing her pain, it was reshaping her perception of it. It gave her the strength to see beyond what was happening, to believe that even in the darkness, something divine was unfolding. Over time, she learned to replace questions with trust. Instead of saying, "Why me?" she began to say, "Try me." Because she knew now that faith doesn't promise an easy life. It promises a meaningful one. It doesn't remove storms. It teaches you how to stand in the rain without losing hope. And each time she faced the storm, her faith deepened. It was no longer just belief, it was experience. She had lived through enough pain to know that somehow she would rise again. When she looked back, she realized that faith had been guiding her all along. It was there when she lost everything and still had the courage to start again. It was there when she walked away from what hurt, trusting that better would come. It was there when her heart was breaking, but her spirit whispered, "Hold on." Faith had become her foundation, not a feeling, but a choice. A choice to trust the unseen, to surrender control, and to believe in timing greater than her own. She understood that fear and faith are both invisible forces. The difference is which one we choose to follow. She chose faith, and in doing so, she found peace even in uncertainty, strength even in weakness, and beauty even in waiting. Her life became a testament that faith is not about knowing what will happen. It's about knowing that whatever happens, you will still be okay. Because with faith, she realized, even when everything falls apart, something within her will always stand tall. There came a moment when she grew tired of asking, "Why me?" She realized that every time she did, she was giving her pain power over her purpose. So one day, she changed the question. Instead of asking why life was hard, she began asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" That single shift in perspective changed everything. Her pain no longer felt like punishment. It felt like preparation. Every experience, every heartbreak, every failure started to make sense when seen through the lens of purpose. She began to understand that nothing in her journey was wasted, that even the wounds had wisdom hidden within them. When life seemed unfair, she looked deeper and found growth. When she lost what she thought she couldn't live without, she discovered her own strength. When she was rejected, she found redirection. Slowly, she realized that her pain was molding her into someone stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. Every time something fell apart, something better was quietly being built within her. Turning pain into purpose became her way of surviving, but also her way of transforming. At first, it wasn't easy. Pain has a way of blinding us, of making us believe we're trapped. But she chose not to let it consume her. She refused to let her story end at suffering. She began to write new chapters, ones where the lessons mattered more than the losses. She started using her experiences not as reasons to close her heart, but as reasons to open it wider. Because she knew now that purpose is never born in comfort, it's born in challenge. Her pain gave her empathy, the ability to feel deeply for others who were struggling. It made her gentle, not weak, patient, not passive. It taught her to listen, to understand, to extend kindness even when she had every reason not to. She started to use her voice not to complain, but to comfort. What once hurt her became the very thing that healed others. Her wounds turned into wisdom that others could lean on, and her story became a source of hope. She learned that pain and purpose are twins. They arrive together. Though one often hides behind the other, pain is the shadow that tests your spirit. Purpose is the light that follows once you refuse to give up. When she stopped running from her pain, she discovered her purpose, waiting right behind it. She began to see that everything she went through was training, not punishment, to prepare her for the woman she was meant to become. In the quiet of her healing, she understood something profound. Life's most painful moments often carry the seeds of our greatest calling. The heartbreaks that shattered her gave her a heart that could understand others. The struggles that once embarrassed her became the testimony that inspired those who had given up. Her story became proof that there is power in pain, not because pain is good, but because what you build from it can change lives. She no longer saw pain as something to escape, but something to embrace and evolve through. Each hardship became a stepping stone, each disappointment a direction, each tear a transformation. And as she walked this path, she realized that turning pain into purpose isn't about forgetting what hurt. It's about using what hurt to create something meaningful. It's about letting your scars speak, letting your past teach, and letting your strength rise from the very places you once thought were broken. Her pain didn't end her. It revealed her. It uncovered her compassion, her resilience, and her reason. And in that revelation, she discovered that the greatest purpose in life often grows from the deepest wounds. Healing is not a straight line. It's a winding path filled with moments of progress and moments of pain. Days when you feel strong and days when you crumble under the weight of memories. For her, healing wasn't a magical transformation, it was a daily choice. A choice to face what hurt, to feel what she had buried, and to let go of what no longer served her. It took time, patience, and an unshakable belief that peace was possible even after the storm. There were nights when she thought she was healed, only for an old memory to reopen the wound. There were mornings when she felt light, only to feel heavy again by evening. And through it all, she learned that healing isn't about forgetting what happened. It's about changing the way it lives within you. It's about reaching a place where the memory no longer controls you, where the pain no longer defines you. That realization freed her, not instantly, but gradually, like dawn breaking after a long, dark night. Healing demanded her honesty. She had to stop pretending she was okay when she wasn't. She had to face the emotions she'd spent years avoiding, the anger, the sadness, the disappointment. She realized that the only way out of pain was through it. She cried when she needed to, screamed when it hurt too much, and forgave when her heart was ready. Every act of release, no matter how small, was a step closer to wholeness. She learned that healing isn't loud. It happens in silence, in solitude, in small moments of surrender. Forgiveness was one of her hardest lessons. For so long, she believed that forgiving meant forgetting or excusing the hurt. But forgiveness, she discovered, wasn't for them, it was for her. It was about releasing herself from the prison of resentment. Carrying bitterness was like carrying a burning coal. It only scorched her own hands. When she finally chose to let go, she didn't do it because they deserved peace. She did it because she did. That single decision lightened her soul in ways she hadn't imagined. She also realized that healing required boundaries. She could no longer allow the same people or situations that had once broken her to have power over her again. She learned to protect her peace, to say no without guilt, to choose herself without apology. Every boundary she built was not a wall but a gate, one that allowed love, respect, and kindness to enter, but kept out what drained her spirit. Healing taught her that self-care wasn't selfish, it was necessary. It was the act of filling her own cup before pouring into others. She began to listen to her body, nurture her mind, and protect her energy. She surrounded herself with people who uplifted her, with moments that nourished her soul, and with silence that allowed her to breathe. Slowly, she rebuilt herself, not into the person she was before, but into someone wiser, calmer, and more grounded. As the days passed, she noticed that the things that once triggered her no longer did. The pain that once consumed her began to soften. She could speak about her past without trembling, remember her struggles without breaking. That's when she realized that healing had been happening all along, quietly, steadily, beneath the surface. Her healing was not about erasing her story, but about reclaiming it. It was about saying, yes, I've been hurt, but I am not my hurt. Each scar became proof of her progress, each tear a step toward peace. She understood that healing doesn't mean you'll never feel pain again. It means the pain no longer has control. And in that gentle truth, she found her freedom, the kind that comes not from forgetting the past, but from finally being at peace with it. Perspective changed everything for her. At first, she believed that happiness meant the absence of pain, that peace existed only when everything around her was calm. But as life unfolded, she learned a deeper truth. Peace isn't found in perfection, it's found in perception. What breaks one person can build another, and the difference lies in how we choose to see it. Her journey taught her that life is not about controlling every situation. It's about controlling how she responds to it. And when she shifted her perspective, everything, even her pain, began to make sense. She remembered the moments when she felt completely defeated, when she thought life was unfair. The disappointments, the betrayals, the unexpected turns, they all felt like chaos. But as time passed, she began to see that those very moments were the ones that made her grow. The rejection that once hurt so deeply had redirected her toward better opportunities. The endings she had cried over had cleared the path for new beginnings. What she once labeled as loss turned out to be life's protection in disguise. The storms she cursed were actually washing away what was not meant for her. Perspective became her greatest power. She started to understand that pain and peace could coexist, that even in her hardest days, there was something to be grateful for. Instead of saying, "Why is this happening to me?" she began to say, "What is this teaching me?" Instead of focusing on what she lost, she learned to appreciate what she gained: wisdom, strength, compassion. She realized that the meaning she gave to her experiences determined how much power they held over her. The moment she changed her view, she changed her life. She discovered that perspective is not about denying pain or pretending everything is fine. It's about choosing to see purpose within the pain. It's about understanding that darkness helps us appreciate light, that endings create space for new beginnings, that challenges shape our character in ways comfort never can. She began to see every obstacle as an invitation to evolve, to trust, to grow. And the more she accepted life as it came, the lighter her spirit became. When things went wrong, she no longer panicked. Instead, she paused. She reminded herself that even when she couldn't see the whole picture, life was still unfolding in her favor. She stopped forcing outcomes and started trusting timing. She began to notice how every experience, good or bad, was a piece of a much larger design. And in that realization, she found serenity. Her new way of seeing also changed how she viewed people. Those who hurt her were no longer villains in her story. They were teachers. They showed her where her boundaries were, where her worth began, and where her strength lay hidden. Instead of holding grudges, she chose gratitude, not for the pain, but for the lessons. Her heart grew softer, but her spirit grew stronger. She became a woman who no longer reacted to life, but responded to it with wisdom and grace. Her perspective turned her scars into symbols, her losses into lessons, and her chaos into clarity. She realized that every situation in life carries both pain and potential, and whichever she focuses on will shape her reality. So, she chose to see the gift even in the grief. She chose to focus on what remained, not what was gone. And as she did, her entire world began to transform, not because her life became easier, but because her vision became clearer. Through this shift in perspective, she discovered one of life's greatest truths. We can't always change what happens, but we can always choose how to see it. And when we choose to see it with understanding, gratitude, and faith, even the hardest moments can become the most beautiful teachers.